Hello and welcome everyone to part 3 of our problem gambling series. Last week for part 2 we spoke to Jason Shires on the psychological effects and impact of gambling. Today we're speaking to Matthew Hickey, Interim Chief Executive of Gordon Moody Association, which is about to open the first residential gambling addiction treatment centre for women in the world. Hi Matthew, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Really nice to meet you.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you on. The news you guys have kind of come out with recently is very interesting, and it's very timely for our problem gambling series. And we're welcoming viewers to part 3 of that series. Just to kind of, as an intro, could you kind of tell us about what you've been working on recently at the Gordon Moody Association?
Yeah, so Gordon Moody is a residential treatment organisation that delivers support for those most in crisis with their gambling addiction. We are now 50 years old this year as we head into 2021. And over the last 50 years, we have been delivering support predominantly for men. What we have seen over the last few years in particular is that more and more women are coming to the fore in needing support in dealing with their addiction. So this year, after working with a number of organisations over the last year, we will be launching, touch wood, depending on COVID, the first residential women's treatment centre for those most affected by gambling addiction, but also those affected as an affected others as well.
Mm-hmm. Sure, yeah, it's very interesting to kind of hear about specifically women problem gambling because, like you said, treatment is kind of predominantly targets men, and we don't often hear much about specifically women. Can you kind of tell us, because we say these, as you've said recently, the figures are on the rise. Can you tell us more about the kind of current figures and numbers when it comes to women problem gamblers?
Yeah, so in terms of women and what we've seen over the last 12, 18 months, we have seen a substantial increase in the number of women reaching out to us for support. That has increased threefold on year. What we are seeing is that more women have been affected by their addiction. More women are therefore in crisis, and more women are reaching out saying, I need to do something about my addiction, not at a low level, but this is a real serious problem. It is destroying my life. I am ready to commit suicide rather than deal with what I've got to deal with. Hence why we have worked over the last 12 months on putting in place the right funding package so that we can roll out this service. We, particularly since COVID hit in February, March of last year, we really have seen the number of calls to us from women increase from probably 5% of our calls being from women to now over 30%. We are seeing those women phoning us being more in crisis. So rather than calling and saying, I could really do with some help, they're now calling and saying, I'm about to commit suicide. And what can you do to help me? So we have a waiting list of women who are waiting to come into our services. And we are hoping that this treatment centre will really make a big effect on those that need support. And what I'm most fearful of is that we are overwhelmed with applications. It's brilliant that we get to open this service, but also, maybe the floodgates will open. And I think that is a real positive as well, because then we can start doing more and more in providing the right sorts of services for women.
Yeah, that certainly paints a kind of a drastic picture, that the figures you're referring to from 5% to 30. Is this sort of this new clinic for women something that was in the works previously and was kind of accelerated by the pandemic, or is this a response to, like you say, a real recent surge?
We've been running a short-term women's program for the past couple of years, which was a weekend retreat with virtual support between time. And what we were really noticing is that more and more women need a full-on break to break the cycle of their addiction, and to do so through a residential treatment place. The profile of women is changing in that more and more women are severely affected by their gambling addictions, and therefore we need to open a residential facility to help them. I don't think it will be a 14-week program like we have for our male residents at the moment. I think it will be a shorter term program because women's needs are different to men. It's a lot easier for a man to give up his life and come and stay with us for 14 weeks. A lot more difficult for women because they've got a lot more people reliant on them. So therefore, it will be a different sort of model in that respect. But we really have seen an increase in the demand for residential support.
To take you up kind of on what you said, the differences between men and women in problem gambling. Gordon Moody trustee Annika Lindberg recently said kind of there's a rise of online gambling advertising that's targeting women. Kind of what's your take on kind of this level of advertising and what percentage of it is aimed at sort of women players specifically?
I think the way that the adverts have been structured is that for women, it's about escapism. It's about escaping from the potential monotony that they see every single day in family life, that of an evening they can get together socially online. And I think that's the kind of design. And I think for the vast majority of people, that works. You know, they are able to cope with that. Whereas those that have got real underlying issues need to be able to know when to stop, and I think that's where the struggle really comes to the fore. Is they aren't able to know when to stop, and therefore carry on, and it then becomes more and more of an issue. I'm drilling it down to its basic level because each individual is completely different. You know, there are stories that I hear of various different ladies who have become addicted to gambling for completely different reasons. You know, one may well be to try and break through the social disadvantage that they are in, and therefore have started on lottery scratch cards and online bingo, for example, to try and win the money to break out of the social deprivation that they're in. Or there may well have been a bereavement in the family, et cetera, et cetera. You know, it all depends on the individual, and to talk about everyone really does drum down into the lowest common denominator and dilutes the picture. But you know, I think Jane Fairhey, who works for us, who does a substantial amount of work with women, would say that women are very good at keeping calm when all around them is falling apart, whereas a man becomes very selfish and just can only concentrate on himself. Whereas a woman would make sure that the children are washed, the children are fed, that the electricity's still on. They will do their best to do that. Whereas a man wouldn't. All he would be interested in is in himself.
I mean, I take your point about each individual, and I think that's always the kind of the most crucial aspect when it comes to responsible gambling and problem gambling. But kind of back to the point of the advertising, and this might kind of counter that point because I'm asking on a general level. But as you mentioned, for the vast majority of people, it's okay, and it's a difficult question. But do you think the advertising, as you said, it kind of targets escapism for women and things like that? Do you think that's overall kind of fair game, or do you think advertisers could be a bit more careful about the way they go about things, considering, as you say, what can lead to it in certain cases, lead from it? Sorry.
I'm deep in thought now. I think from my point of view, and this is a personal point of view rather than that of the organisation, I think that the gambling companies are doing a lot more to provide the right sort of responsible gaming message, the responsible gambling message alongside their advertising. I think it's something that we've seen a lot more of over the last 12 months. I know that the industry got together and said, we will not be doing television and radio advertising during lockdown because of the backlash and they changed those to a responsible gaming a responsible gambling message, which I think was a real good thing. I think now that they are starting to entwine those two messages together, that's a real good thing. However, I do think we've still got a long way to go to be able to give the public the knowledge that gambling as an addiction is a full-on proper addiction in the same way that drugs and alcohol is, and that there are proper support services out there to help people. And I think there's a huge amount of awareness that we as a treatment sector can do, working with the industry to make sure that those people that are affected do know that there is support out there for them.
Yeah. On that note, specifically again looking at the women gambling, problem gambling, something else that your trustee Annika talked about was the kind of the added stigma and shame surrounding women who gamble, and that might be stronger for them. Kind of how will this you as an organization, but the treatment center, how will kind of approach things on that note?
I mean, that's really part of the design phase that we're entering into, and we have to design it with peer support. It has to be led by women to ensure that it is appropriate for women. So we're in the process of trying to recruit in the right project manager that potentially has got lived experience, that knows about this, so that we can design it in such a way that, you know, if it needs to be that little secret place that they go to, or it's designed in such a way as a wellness centre rather than a treatment centre, then so be it. You know, we haven't specifically got into that detail yet, but I think as we go through that peer-led design phase, it will really make the difference to ensure that it's the right type of context for women.
And how does that kind of affect the general methods? As you say, there's no typical case, but the methods and how they'd be different you'd use with a male problem gambler and say specifically in this case the female problem gamblers.
I mean, the Gordon Moody model really is based on two parts. It's a peer-to-peer support network. So working with other people who have been in a similar situation to you. They may well be 6 months further on in their recovery than in their treatment and recovery than you are. And that really pays dividends because they can help deal with whatever you're dealing with at that moment in time. And then the therapeutic support kind of underpins that. And, you know, we work very hard on trying to rebuild the tools and the mechanisms that each individual has to deal with whatever it is that they're having to deal with as to why they've got into the gambling. So we really talk about whether someone is ready and committed to come into treatment. And by ready and committed, we mean that they're ready in their position now to give up the time to get into it, and committed to make a go of it. Yes, it's going to be difficult. Yes, it's going to be quite upsetting at times as well. But actually, you will get through it, and actually, you will have the tools and the ability to deal with it. And actually, what you will get at the end of it is a set of friends that will be friends for life as well. People that have been through something very similar to you, who become then your network of support around you, that you can turn to on those more difficult days once you've been through treatment. And I think that's one of the key things in our model, is that it's not just being force fed by therapists; it's actually being led by your peers as well.
Yeah, I can imagine that being a tremendous sort of benefit. You mentioned earlier, and unless I'm mistaken, that for kind of a male course would be for 14 weeks, I think you mentioned, and for the women you're aiming to shorter.
Yes. Yeah, I think, you know, for a woman who's got a network around her who need that support from that woman, giving up 14 weeks is a huge amount of time. You know, for a male, they may well have gambled for 30 years and 14 weeks is nothing to them. But for a female, you know, because of the support network that they will have relying on them, that's kind of a big time. So at the moment, we're kind of muting the idea of 28 days, but it could be 14 days or it could be 36 days. It all depends on how the model kind of develops. We may have a little bit of flexibility in there for the individual, but as I said, we're still in that design phase to getting it into something that really works.
Sure. And obviously, with all of these kind of projects, funding is crucial. And as I understand, you've kind of been helped with funding by a company within the gambling industry itself. Can you tell us a bit about that and kind of how helpful their cooperation has been?
Yeah, we've been talking to the organisation for quite a while around a whole range of things, and actually, it really started with them needing support in improving their responsible gambling team.
Sure.
So we were working with their RG team for quite a while on providing training and support, et cetera, so they could learn about the needs of of a problem gambler. And the relationship was going really well. We were really growing, and they wanted to do more. They wanted to be able to create an opportunity to support more people. Not that they have influence over the design, not that they have influence over anything that Gordon Moody do, but they wanted to be able to, through their foundation, provide that opportunity to support more people that are affected by gambling, whether that be through anything that the industry themselves have done or elsewhere. So yeah, it really is a new relationship and a new collaboration that we're putting in place, and it will really see this service grow. And I think, and I will say this, I think once we do open the doors, the demand for it will outstrip the funding we've got now. And I do hope that other organisations like the one we're in collaboration with now do come to the fore and say, we want to be supporting more of this as well, whether that's from the gambling industry or from outside of the industry as well.
Yeah, what's positive to hear from that is that they kind of took the initiative to come to you and that kind of thing. You mentioned the rest of the industry. I was going to ask, have you had much, generally speaking, actually, not just with this initiative, what kind of level of support do you get from the rest of the industry?
In terms of our financial model, we are very well supported by Gamble Aware. They pay for they support us in delivering the men's residential treatment and the wraparound services around that. We are very well funded by the industry in delivering gambling therapy as our international online tool. And this year, we have been supported by other organisations in trying to achieve more. And I think one of the key things that I've been trying to do over the last 12 months is really raise the awareness of Gordon Moody within the industry and really deliver the impact that we bring. We now produce a quarterly newsletter and impact results on the difference that we are making, and we hope to carry that on. We're doing a lot of work on our data impact, and therefore we hope that information will help the gambling industry understand the current trends from an addiction point of view, so that it can help inform game design in the future.
Yeah, I mean, that's good to hear, and we hope this interview can help you raise your profile. A question, though, that I've asked others in this series, and I'll put to you is, what can the industry do more, and not specifically just with Gordon Moody or the clinic, but in general to help with responsible gambling?
I think I alluded to this before. I think collaboration between treatment services and the industry need to get stronger. We do have some real strong relationships, but we need to build on those more and more. I think awareness that addiction and gambling addiction is equal to other addictions is one of the key things that we can do together. And I think building those relationships between the industry and the treatment services, so that those people that are affected through whichever game it is that so online bingo, for example, that there is a clear route weight between online bingo and into the National Gambling Treatment Service or whatever it may well be. I think there's quite a bit of work that we can do there. I think the opportunity with the gambling review and then the knock-on effect with that at a political level, we'll really see the opportunity of the industry and the treatment services coming together a lot more closely. and providing the right sorts of treatment in the right places at the right time.
Yeah, sure. On that note, thank you for all your analysis and insights so far. And my final question I had planned kind of relates to that very much. Is based on the success of this clinic and Gordon Moody and responsible gambling in general, how confident are you of making real headway and making a real difference in this area moving forward, and kind of especially with hopefully this center can open successfully?
What I will say is that the biggest risk that I have in my organisation at the moment is that the demand for our services is going to be outstripped by the supply. That is the one thing that I'm really worried about. I can see just coming over the hill there a tidal wave of people because of lockdown that will need more and more support. The mental health issues that we're all suffering with, and particularly those with addiction, are going to need more and more support. And I think the demand on our services and other treatment services is just going to go exponential. And I think therefore the key thing is how do we supply the right level of treatment to those that need it as quickly as possible.
Yeah, obviously it's a very important issue, central to the industry, and it's right at the heart of gambling. And we wish you all the best of luck with your work, and hopefully, as you say, the demand doesn't swallow you up, and things can go as smoothly as possible.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think if anyone wants to learn more about what we do, anyone wants to reach out, please get in contact with us. We're more than happy to have a conversation and show you the difference that we make. And hopefully we can build more relationships with the industry to deliver more services.
Absolutely, yeah. Matthew, thank you very much for your time and for your answers.
Thanks, Tim.
To all our viewers, thanks for watching part 3 of our in-depth problem gambling series. Next up is part 4 with Per and Carey, where we'll be talking about organizational culture and compliance. See you next time.